These are the guilty. They have been condemned for the crime of excessive creativity while on television. These creative geniuses have produced programs too smart, too edgy, or too hip for TV. And these are some of the titles of the deceased.
Programs that get on the air for the wrong reasons, and ultimately stay on the air for the right reasons.
Everything has to come together. It's like a souffle. Not one thing can be missing.
Sometimes viewers kill brilliant shows.
And I wish I could say that the best shows I've done were the ones that were most successful. It's just not true.
So we were just wasting our time?
You never waste time, Jason. Time wastes you.
You have to find that audience and please them. They need you, and we need them.
Other times, networks doing brilliant programs.
There's no such thing as a successful show with poor ratings.
It's the nature of an institution to perpetuate and protect itself.
The real loser is the viewer, is the culture.
But sometimes fans fight back when their shows are canceled.
I think that kind of outpouring of real passion from fans certainly influences the executives.
Tell me the last show that was put on again because of a big writing campaign. It's a waste of time.
And some failed brilliance will live on forever.
I think that it's important to look at the power of the show itself.
Even wildly unsuccessful television is far more pervasive than we give it credit for. You know, when you fail with 8, 10, 12, 14 million people.
I wish I had more guts.
We don't open our hearts in the way we might have 20 years ago because we understand how dangerous that terrain is.
My mom says that women prefer guys with a good sense of humor. You're not very funny.
Television comedy, let's face it, most people, the more intelligent, the less you watch television.
Coming up on Brilliant But Canceled, the sometimes heartbreaking struggle to get sophisticated gems on the air.
The desire to balance creativity with commercialism is the $64 million question as it relates to television programming.
Now let us see what possibilities exist for television.
For more than half a century, television's most talented producers have fought network executives to get the best programs on the air. It's often a mission impossible because the network brass want more than brilliant shows. They want hits.
That's show business. Burn this. We all know that in Hollywood, there's only one thing to do whenever you suffer a crushing and public humiliation, and that is, of course, find someone else to blame.
Of course, creators want hits too. But the battle between television producers who try to make the best show and executives who want the most popular show rages on.
Sometimes genius is the victim of itself because geniuses believe they're right all the time, and that's not true either.
Did you ever love a woman so much that...
Look at sign!
Why do so many great shows die an early death? Sometimes programs are too sophisticated for viewers who want to turn on the tube and then tune out.
You've got this medium which is dependent upon appealing to millions and millions of people who are probably out of the room, half asleep, half dead for all we know. It is really nothing short of a miracle that there have been as many programs as good as they are on TV.
Network television's best shows often fail because mainstream audiences prefer something similar to what they've seen before. Many believe the 1999 Fox show Action was canceled because of its unconventionally dark humor.
All right, people, look alive. The vacation is over.
This profanity-laden but critically lauded show starred Jay Moore as a sleazy movie producer who hired a prostitute.
Look, Wendy, I want you to come work for me. I'm offering you a job. Not as a prostitute. No. I want you to work for me as a motion picture executive, which is just a different kind of prostitute.
She's a former child star who's now a prostitute who is eventually going to be running his company. I just thought, oh, this is endless. This is going to be really funny.
But action wasn't a traditional comedy with punchlines and a laugh track. It was an intensely satirical look at Hollywood, and it grabbed headlines across the country.
There was a tremendous amount of heat around the show. We were shooting like a TV Guide cover. We were in Time magazine next to the West Wing.
Though the press hailed action as a remarkable experience in TV comedy, viewers didn't like its inside Hollywood humor or its characters. Fox was forced to cancel the show after 8 episodes due to anemic ratings.
Peter, I don't get why the new girl's here. I mean, isn't she in development? This is a production meeting.
I'm showing her the ropes, and the new girl's name is Wendy, and put the orange down, you chimp.
It was just brilliantly funny. It lives in, TV infamy, I suppose.
Cutting-edge shows have long had a hard time finding an audience. In 1963, East Side, West Side was canceled because it was too tough and gritty for mainstream viewers. East Side, West Side starred George C. Scott as a social worker. In one episode, he fought to help a poor black family.
And it was a story about a family in Harlem whose kid gets bitten by a rat, and he runs out into the street with the baby, trying to get a cab to get to the hospital, and nobody will stop for him because he's black.
Hey, you! Hey, cab! Hey, stop, will you?
James Earl Jones played the young father.
They go through the machinery, city agencies, trying to deal with this. And George is a social worker, tries to help us out.
But CBS execs got a little nervous when they screened the program. They were afraid this episode would turn viewers' stomachs.
We showed rats on the air. It was a big problem for program practices. The censor, you don't want to show rats because that's upsetting to people.
I accept that was probably the best work I've ever done, but it sure grabbed people's attention.
People like CBS programming chief Michael Dann, who called George C. Scott to a meeting before the show was scheduled to air.
He came in with high boots and a knife and an apple, and I explained to him why he had to change the show.
Took a knife out of his boot, and he picked up an apple took an apple out of his pocket, and he slowly started to peel the apple.
Every time he cut that piece of apple, he knew what he was doing. I think he thought it was my neck.
Dan explained to his leading man that CBS didn't want to broadcast the episode because it was too depressing.
Suddenly, George leaped up and went for his throat across the desk, and I had to pull him back.
He didn't grab my neck. He did lean across the table. He did have a knife in his hand, but it was from peeling an apple. Now, if you're asking me, was I scared of him? You could say yes. Was I happy when he left the room? Yes. Was George Scott a menacing character? You bet.
I don't want you around, man. You dig?
I dig.
CBS ended up running the episode, but the network canceled East Side, West Side in its first season due to low ratings.
I don't think any white man knows what it's like, the life of a Negro.
There's the example where the producers of the show were so ahead of the time, so ahead of the curve in terms of what an audience could. People couldn't watch Rats in an apartment in Harlem. Just couldn't do it. It was just too much. It was too real.
Many cutting-edge programs have featured characters too real to attract large network-size audiences. That was what killed one of the most famous failed shows in TV history, 1983's Buffalo Bill.
Bill, it's about your friend Pete Killian
Yeah, he's a good guy, Pete.
from 60 Minutes.
Yeah, I was with him the day he got the job on 60 Minutes.
I hate to be the bearer of ill tidings, but he's dead.
He's what?
Pete Killian died at 11:30 this morning.
Oh, he's dead. I thought you said he was here.
Buffalo Bill, I think, is probably the best or close to the best situation comedy I've ever been associated with or ever been done.
Buffalo Bill Bittinger was an incorrigible TV talk show host played by Dabney Coleman.
Well, Dr. Murphy, it certainly has been an informative half hour.
Well, thank you, Bill. And I'd like to extend an invitation to you and to the members of your studio audience to visit my therapeutic massage center at any time.
But I wonder if we could just put a few cards on the table for a minute. A therapeutic massage center, isn't that just another way of saying porno palace?
He was this self-serving, curmudgeon, womanizing, ambitious, characterless human being who put himself in positions where he had to struggle to survive.
NBC execs found that this acerbic character turned off viewers and television sets.
We kept putting it out there, we promoted it, we tried to do everything, and we just couldn't get enough audience.
People tuned it out for a reason, and we think the reason has to be because they didn't think it was funny.
Television's rating system doesn't measure the IQ of viewers, just the number.
You know, it's television, and there's the good side of television, there's the bad side. If you're going to really write intelligent a television comedy, let's face it, most people, the more intelligent, the less you watch television. That's just a fact.
Facts? What is this big deal about facts?
Do you remember referring to the late, great Cardinal Costa?
He was great.
He's alive!
NBC canceled Buffalo Bill in 1984. Some say the show's dark character comedy would have succeeded on cable TV with its smaller, more selective audiences.
Buffalo Bill would be a great cable show. They just didn't have the options back then. Cable was really, you know, back in the 80s when Buffalo Bill came on, cable just lived off of network reruns. Cable wasn't investing in original programming.
It's not so much that they're shooting for like the lowest common denominator, they're shooting for the, you know, the least offensible denominator. They just don't want to offend anybody.
What happens when a show hits all the wrong buttons? Consider the case of The Critic. Not only was this ABC series that profiled a Siskel and Ebert-style movie reviewer ahead of its time, it also featured unlikable characters and dark satire of show business, a killer combination.
Hello?
Jay, this is your mother. Your father and I are taking you out of our will. We feel you already have enough money. Oh, yes, and happy birthday.
The Critic was produced by James L. Brooks and other producers from The Simpsons. ABC liked the show, but feared it was too offbeat to hit with its audience.
James L. Brooks had a deal with ABC that whatever he came in with, they had to do. And they not only had to do it, they had to make 22 of them. And we came in with The Critic, and they said, we're not going to do it. And we showed them the contract, you have to do it. And they just said, we won't do it. They refused. And so eventually it was negotiated down to where they would do 13 episodes of The Critic.
When the series premiered with John Lovitz in the lead, many mainstream viewers didn't like its smart-ass social satire or its characters.
Did I miss one?
You might have.
I missed an Achim.
Right after the first episode of The Critic aired, our assistant came in with a big crate, and I said, what's that? And she said, that's hate mail.
Put it out! Put out my head! You did that on purpose!
So what if I did? I'm union.
The first episode, The Critic meets a woman, and I think he sleeps with her that night, and that was all it took, and that was a good lesson to know we're in the wrong place here.
ABC canceled The Critic after 6 episodes. Fox picked up the show and scheduled it after The Simpsons. It didn't last the season.
Our mistake at the beginning was we made him too much of a loser. He was sad, he was lonely, he was, we would subject him to physical humor, you know, and the audiences didn't really like that.
It lacked heart to reach a broader audience.
It stinks.
But we always tried to make it funny, and we always tried to make it very smart, and that's a smaller portion of the audience who's content just to laugh and sort of have their intelligence respected.
Even today, producers and executives face a great dilemma: how to create innovative shows that are also popular with television's enormous audiences.
I think a desire to balance creativity with commercialism is probably the $64,000 question, or perhaps the $64 million question as it relates to television programming.